Live the dream, baby. Live the dream.
You go, Beto!
Yeah, you're living the dream, all right.
Yeah, I'm living the dream.
I'm living the dream, as you say.
It was all a dream. Me and Beto rolling in the limousine.
Go, Beto!
Oh, and we are doing this. We are doing a Living the Dream podcast. I'm Beto Duran. Thanks for joining us. You can see if you're watching us on YouTube Live, there's a Living the Dream t-shirt over my shoulder. I'm on my Instagram Live just for right now, just to show you. But if you're checking this out, Instagram Live, YouTube Live is where we're going to have all kinds of things. So if you're on the Instagram, go to YouTube Live, Beto Duran, and I'm going to be having my man, the one and only, my guest today. Oh man, I don't even know where to start with this dude, but we go way back to 2003, maybe. The one and only Sean Farnham, ESPN college basketball analyst, is with us today. Farnham, when did we meet?
So we met like back in 2003 at the Culver City bunker known as, at the time, ESPN 710.
Yeah, man. So it was.
I saw the star in you before everybody else. I just want to make sure that that's known. I mean, there's not a lot of people that in the radio business that were making only $25 a show, by the way.
Wow, we were.
That would
We were.
drive down and spend more money in gas than they were making and buy pizza for you without knowing how big of a celebrity you were going to be. So that was just me understanding that eventually I'd have to ride on your coattails.
Yeah, we started off in 2003. So if you're watching on Instagram right now, this is actually on YouTube Live, Beto Duran. If you guys want to check that out, leave your comments there. So I'm going to delete this on Instagram, but if you guys want to go see that. But yeah, so the way we started, you were hosting a radio show because you just started into the business after having played at UCLA, and I was answering the phones for you, right? Early 2000s?
That is correct. That is correct. And it was the shows, I believe they were called Uncensored, because we didn't have like the Lakers, right, for the show. And so they called it the Uncensored Lakers postgame.
That's right.
And essentially it was, hey, we can say anything we want because we don't have a partnership with the team. And we did all these uncensored programs about UCLA, about the Lakers, about the Trojans. It was a lot of fun, and it was live. And we get the normal suspects that normally still call into a lot of the local LA radio shows. I swear, all day long they sit out there and they listen. Which, trust me, working in the sports medium, we appreciate. But it was a lot of fun, man. You were on the other side of the glass, and the difficult thing with you was, you were always multi-step planning. You always had your next move out in front of you.
No, I did. At that time, I didn't.
No, you did.
No, I didn't.
You weren't answering the calls, so what were you doing then?
So at that time,
I just assumed you were working on something else.
No, at that time, I wanted to be a producer. Like, I just wanted to be behind the scenes. So I was okay with answering the phones, and I really wanted to be just a radio producer. And then you and I hit it off, and we got to talking. I'm like, wait a minute, who's this guy? Because you didn't know what you were doing either, right? You were trying to get into the business?
You know how to turn on the microphone. Like, you had to come in and show me how to turn on the microphone.
That's right. That's right. You didn't know anything. Okay, so your story, before we get to that, you played basketball at UCLA what years?
I played basketball at UCLA. I came in, my freshman year was the fall of 1996, so it was immediately following the loss to Princeton. In the NCAA tournament. So they lost to Princeton in the 96 NCAA tournament. I started the following year at UCLA.
And then after UCLA?
My was different though, Beto. You see all these kids nowadays, like Jalen Green announcing yesterday that he's going to go straight to the G League. Johnny Juzang, who just and all the recruiting. Back then, there was no Instagram, there was no social media, there was no outreach, really, unless you did it yourself. And I played for the Oakland Soldiers, which now if I played for the Oakland Soldiers and did what I did, I'd be looked at completely different because there's a carryover to that. And so what ended up happening is UCLA lost to Princeton, and the coaching staff flew to Sacramento to scout Crenshaw. And Crenshaw had a bunch of really good players. Kevin Bradley was one of them. They had, I think, a guy by the name of Alistair Fox. He was a stud as well. It was Willie West and Crenshaw Cougars, one of the most prolific basketball programs in the history of the state. And we played them in the state championship. And after that night, I ended up getting like 35 scholarship offers. And then I had the opportunity to go down to UCLA and be part of that program. And for me, like, I kind of knew I was never going to be a pro basketball player. Mm-hmm. Like, I love the game. The game's been really good to me. But I also was very realistic with my skill set and where I would thrive and where I wouldn't thrive. And I thought about the bigger picture, and I wanted to have an opportunity to play against the best players in college. I wanted an opportunity to maybe try to win a national championship, and UCLA was that door that opened up.
So you played at UCLA 4 years. Your final year there, I remember watching it because I think you're a year older than me, maybe. I was 96. I think you were 95, right? High school?
I was 96 in high school.
Oh, we're the same age then. Wow.
Yes, I graduated in 2000.
Wow, you've accomplished a whole lot in your life. I remember watching you because you became your senior year like the guy who got the start. You were the good luck charm at UCLA.
Yeah, that wasn't, and it's just funny because there's UCLA fans that still come after me about that. That didn't like the fact. Well, because they thought it was like a gimmick type thing, and that's fine. And I never made more about my playing career at UCLA. I'm very realistic with what I was as a basketball player. Like, I'm not like sitting there like, oh yeah, it was like, it was BD or Watson, Capono, Matt Barnes, and then me. No, that's not what I've ever said. But I tried to give all I could in the moments that I had out of the court. And for whatever reason, Jerome Moiso and Dan Gazurek, sometimes they preferred to come off the bench.
Okay.
And that's what people don't understand. Sometimes, like, there was a stretch of games where Dan Gazurek wanted to see the game kind of unfold in front of him before he came out on the floor. He felt more confident, felt more comfortable, whatever it was. So I would go out there and I'd play like 2 or 3 minutes, and I'd sit down and then get a couple more minutes here or there to sprinkle in through the rest of the game. And that was it. And, the record of the team, I think, and I do know it was 17-2 with me in the starting lineup. Both losses I had actually came in the NCAA tournament. So that was, that's always heartbreaking over the 2-year stretch that I had the opportunity to be in the starting lineup. But that was a dream. I mean, just to wear that uniform and have John Wooden sitting behind our bench every single game, to be able to call my teammates, like some of those guys I just mentioned, Capono, Barnes, Gadzurek, Moiso, Baron Davis, Earl Watson, Todd Ramazar, who's a big-time NBA agent now, and doing so well. Duran Rush, who's doing great things now in Kansas City and has really started his training academy and doing great things there. Ray Young, Jelani McCoy, and how people forget how talented Jelani McCoy or Toby Bailey or Dare Henderson. I mean, the list of the guys that I was able to play with during that era at UCLA made it such a memorable period of time in my life. And, when I think of Pauley Pavilion, I think of a packed house. I think of loud noises. I think of us competing against the best teams in the country and having a lot of fun. And it was wild with those guys. And some of their personalities, Beto. It was a wild group, but it was one that I was very thankful and still am very thankful to be part of.
Now, we'll get back to memory lane and all that other stuff. What are you doing now? You're an ESPN analyst for college basketball?
Yep. Yeah, I'm a college basketball analyst for ESPN. This has been I just finished my 10th season. This one kind of came to an abrupt end, obviously, at the timing, and I was on Scott Van Pelt, and he asked me what I thought about college basketball. I told him I thought we saw our last games, and unfortunately I was right. And that was the night Rudy Gobert tested positive for having coronavirus. And so, but it's been 10 years. It's been an incredible ride. And in this business, Beto, you don't start somewhere, you work to get there. And where I started when I came to ESPN was covering the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference, and the WCC. And as the years have gone on, I've covered every Power 5 conference. I've called the ACC tournament. I've called the SEC tournament. And now in the last couple of years, I've really done a lot more studio work and covering not just college basketball, but even doing some of the NBA stuff on Get Up with Mike Greenberg. And that's been a tremendous opportunity to continue to grow in this profession because this in all that you've been able to accomplish, whether it's in the boxing world or whether it's trying to dap up Jim Hill. And I'm glad that Jim finally dapped you up. I was starting to get concerned. Yeah. That arm, I was worried about that arm. I thought, man, that arm is out there all day.
Yeah.
But you've got to continue to work, and you've got to continue to try to push yourself. And right now, currently, in this quarantine, I'm trying to work on executive producing a couple of projects, pitched a couple of ideas for 30 for 30, and I'm trying to stretch myself in that realm as well.
Now, you've been at ESPN 10 years? Damn, time flies.
Yeah, man. So I started at Fox Sports. With the time I was working with you, I just had started at Fox Sports West. covering high school sports with Lindsay Soto, a.k.a. Lindsay Rose,
Yeah.
star on the NFL Network. Then Chris McGee, who obviously is doing great things with Spectrum. And I was working with John Jackson at the time and doing a lot of high school stuff. And then started branching off and doing more college basketball things with Fox Sports West, and then going to the sideline with the Lakers and the Clippers for a couple of years, Dodgers and Angels, and you and I were seeing each other a lot during those days as you were kind of evolving into your role that you're in now, and doing those interviews in the locker rooms and whatnot on the court post game. And it's been an incredible journey with a lot of hands in a lot of different cookie jars to try to understand and learn the most I can about this business.
It's crazy because you were cutting your teeth locally at Fox Sports West. I was starting off the radio. We would see each other a lot. And you got thrown in to the fire, but you did a lot of same thing you did with the basketball player. Prepare, and get after it. You were doing the high school stuff, but one of the things that I remember you and I had the conversation was that everybody's like, oh, Sean, he's the basketball guy only. He's a basketball guy only. And you made a point to say, no, I am a sports guy. I can do anything.
Yeah.
How hard is it for anybody who's listening who's trying to get into the business or a former athlete who's like, I don't want to be pigeonholed one thing?
Well, Bill McDonald, and we all love Billy Mack.
Yeah.
He's been my mentor from day one. And he told me very early on, always say yes, always make yourself available. And so sometimes it's about knocking on a door and asking for an opportunity to show what you can do. And part of my transition was doing from just talking basketball on the high school show. Then I said, well, why can't I interview some of these high school athletes and do features on them? I'm a former athlete. They'll relate well to me. And let's see what we can do. And one of my first ones that I ever did actually was on Phil Hughes, the baseball player that ended up going and playing for the New York Yankees and made a ton of money over the course of his Major League Baseball career. But he was one of the first stories I ever did. That and Nikki Blue, who was a women's basketball player at UCLA, then went to play in the WNBA, now is an assistant coach at ASU. And so the opportunity that I learned from Billy Mack was don't let people pigeonhole you. If you don't ask, if you don't put yourself out there, then they will pigeonhole you and they will assume that you're happy and you're content and you're fine with what you're doing. But if you don't do that and you keep knocking on doors and coming up with ideas, you're going to be told no a lot more than you're going to be told yes. But when you get the opportunity to be told yes, if you knock it out of the park, the next time you walk in that person's door, they're much more likely to tell you yes again and give you the opportunity to show that you can stretch yourself even further.
One of the things that I admire about you, Sean, is like having known you over the years, and we stay in contact all the time, but I haven't seen you in I don't even know how long, but
probably about 2 years.
Yeah, right. I think the last time
I saw you was at a basketball tournament.
That was 3 years ago because our kids were playing against each other, and you had just gone off the plane from Texas, went straight to that map or something, and you're coaching there. But how do you go and make your career that way where there's so many different stops, so many different ways? And you mentioned 10 years at ESPN. We see a lot of guys who come in from big-time schools or they just got done playing, and then they last half a year. How do you maintain that?
Well, I think you have to accept failures. I've had plenty of failures in my career, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of them. But you accept failure and you learn and you grow from them. The other thing is, as you mentioned, preparation. I am obsessed with being prepared. I obsess with building relationships and treating people fairly. I am not in the business of trying to break stories. I'm not in the business of trying to out somebody, trick somebody, catfish somebody, whatever, to try to do like a sneak report. I'm in the business of reporting what I see and being fair to the people in which I'm covering. That doesn't mean I can't have an opinion. But what happens is when people hear my opinion, they know that my opinion is based on I get the mentality that we have now where you can say absurd things to your career, maybe in the short term, but I think in the long term it hurts you more often than not. You have to be professional, you have to be prepared, and you have to be respected. You earn respect with how you treat people and how you carry yourself and conduct yourself in those business settings. And for me, that's where I take a great deal of pride in what I do. And my kids will tell you, they don't see me a lot during the college basketball season, even when I'm home. And I'm home rarely. But I'll be on my laptop on Synergy breaking down film after film after film. When I go and do a story on Get Up and I do something about Kawhi Leonard and his defense like I did a year ago, when he was going through this free agent process. I didn't want to just do, hey, look, he's good at defense here. Look at him making some good defensive plays. I wanted to tell people very specifically why he is different than every other defensive player in the NBA. And to do that, you have to dive in analytics, you have to dive in film, you have to dive in communication with other players in the league and asking them, hey, when you go against him, what makes him unique when he's guarding you? What does he do that nobody else does? And when you start connecting all three of those dots, guess what you become? An expert at what you're delivering. Yeah. And when you are an expert, it's really hard for people to take shots at you and tell you that you're not doing a good job.
Yeah, the worst thing you could do is show up unprepared, especially at ESPN, because they email you 8,000 times a day when you're doing a show. Okay, the stats and research department.
And you mentioned it. There's been plenty of guys that have gotten an opportunity based on how they played, and they've come in, and some of those guys I've had conversations with after their first season, and I'm like, hey, how'd it go? And they're like, I'm done. I'm not doing this again, man. This is a lot of hard work. This is not easy. I thought I'd just come in and talk hoop. This isn't just coming in and talking hoop. I got to know over 300 teams at the college level. That's crazy. And I'm like, no, that's the job you signed up for. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I think that's one thing where I'm fortunate because I wasn't a star, ever. At the college level, never a star. Didn't have an opportunity to play professionally in the NBA. I did have professional opportunities overseas. I chose to go into coaching instead at Pepperdine. But I was never a star, so I don't come in with a star mentality. I come in with let's work and grind and roll up my sleeves to get better mentality. I think that served me well so far.
And that's why you and I get along, because we have that same attitude of like, look, we're grinders. I'm still waiting for somebody to come up and say, hey, Beto, it's been a good ride. Time to go. But because of Beto Vision Garage Studios, nobody's kicking me out of here right now.
No, I mean, I love the studio. I was talking about it. The Mike Tyson is my favorite, I think.
Yeah, the Mike Tyson punch out that I got right there.
Because it's all pixelated like it was when we played. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all played that game.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm going to leave the frame right there just so we can see it. But yeah, that came from my boy Eddie Aguilera. Like, not even pictures. Those are that's the garage door. And there's hangers right there, because you have to create opportunities for yourself, and that's the most important thing you got to do, because you might get one shot, and that might be it. Now, for you, what's your normal when you're working college basketball during the season? You work what, the SEC?
Well, no. Right now, I mean, I do some. My Saturday games rotate.
Okay.
So I did ACC, SEC, and actually some Gonzaga games, because Gonzaga's in the top, 3 all season long. So they had me do some West Coast games. They're bigger games against St. Mary's and BYU. I did those games. But mainly I was in the SEC and the ACC on Saturdays, and then in studio doing Wednesday and Thursday nights on ESPN with Dallin Cuff and Kevin Connors in studio there. And then I'd sprinkle in Get Up around that on 2 additional days.
Now, if
you're asking me
your schedule,
traditional week.
Give me your schedule for the week. There it is.
All right, so I'd fly out on Monday to New York City, and I would go to New York, land there, watch the NBA games on Monday night. On Tuesday morning, I'd be on Get Up, and I'd be working, covering NBA and college basketball on that show, but mainly NBA, because the focus of that show tends to be more on the NBA game than the college game. After that show is done, wake up time, by the way, show meeting is at 5 a.m. You wake up, 6 a.m. you have show meeting, 7 a.m. you're doing Sports Center, 8 a.m. that show starts and goes to 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Jeez.
After that show is over, I get into a car and I head up to Bristol, Connecticut. I check into my hotel. I watch the college basketball games that night. Wednesday, do a Sirius XM show, and then go into working from basically 4 p.m. to about 1 a.m. On ESPN, doing Sports Center's Daily Wager, and then doing pre halftime and post for any of the games that we have on that night. Those games are usually on ESPN too, because the NBA is on ESPN on Wednesday. Thursday night, rinse and repeat, do the same thing. Once I get off that show, which again is about midnight, I would get in a car and go back down to New York, arriving at about 2:30 in the morning, get about an hour and a half of sleep, and then get up and do Get Up again on Friday morning. As soon as that show ends, I go to the airport. I then fly out to go to practices on Friday night, hopefully, wherever I'm calling my game on Saturday. Do my game on Saturday, fly home on Sunday, get home about midday on Sunday, and fly out at 6 a.m. again on Monday. Aren't you glad you asked that?
I mean, so you want to be on TV, huh? And you got three kids that are very active in their own sports life right now.
But let's also be honest that once we're out of season, I'm home.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do a lot of things. I do a lot of charity stuff that I'm involved with.
But still, it's a grind. It's a grind.
But it is a grind during that period of time. My investment in what I do during that period of time is extensive. I miss Thanksgiving. I've never had a Thanksgiving dinner with my kids because that's feast week for us. We're always working.
That's right.
I've missed my youngest son's birthday all but 1 year of his life. I was there for the day he was born, and then I was there for one additional birthday. He's 9 years old. I've been for one. Poor timing on, by the way, when we had him. And the same can be said for my oldest. I've worked on Christmas. You've worked on Christmas. You know the deal. And so there is no, hey, I really need this time with my family. No, you get your time with your family when you're off. In the off season, you get your time with your family. And so right now, I'm getting plenty of time with my family. My wife would probably tell you too much time with my family.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of was that line of when people retire, like, "Oh, I retired to spend more time with my family," and then the family's like, "Hey, we don't want you to retire. Get back out of here. Get going."
That's basically how last month was of March. They're like, "Dad, why are you here? Why aren't you in Atlanta at the Final Four?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd like to be. Trust me." But it is a grind. But they've learned to accept it. My wife and I have a good understanding of exactly how our house works. Look, I make no mistake about it, she's the CEO, she's the CFO. She calls a lot because we need stability with our three children, and she is that stability with our kids.
Now let's talk about your wife though, because she's an awesome person. When I told you I was having my first son, Mateo, you two sent over little baby. I don't even know what they call little. Not napkins, but towel.
No, the blankets. That's right, the blankets.
The throw-up things.
The burpee.
There you go, the burpee thing.
Yeah, I got you.
It's been so long, but yeah, it's pretty cool. But you two are athletes. She was a soccer star, right, at UCLA?
Yep. Yeah, she was.
So how did you meet her?
She was in the Olympic development program and actually even roomed with Hope Solo when she was in high school. She's a tremendous athlete. There's good parts and there's bad parts to it. Beto, you know me, I'm pretty damn competitive. My wife's pretty competitive as well. And so when we go to arguments, we just don't have arguments. We go to win. Nobody goes into an argument in this household and is like, okay, I'm willing to accept defeat. So it usually can go. But, part of that athlete mentality that I have as an athlete is obviously just working hard, right, and grinding. Her mentality is very similar. So she locks herself into a zone, especially when I go on the road, starting in basically the middle of October through the Final Four, and is like, okay, so this is his season, this is also my season, and it's my responsibility to take care of all this stuff. And without her, there's no way my kids would be able to thrive and do the things that they're doing and having the success that they're enjoying. Look, we got married when I was 24 years old, and she was 22. We've been married now almost 18 years. So it's been a long time. Somehow, some way, we've made this thing work, and she's been the person right by my side to help me and also encourage me through my failures, through the things that I have struggled with professionally, in particular. And I can't thank her enough for that rock and that person always being there.
Now, is it true that you met in the training room? Is that what I remember?
Yeah, we met in the training room. She was a freshman, and I saw her across the way, and I was like, who is that? And let's be honest. Beto, I'm a confident person as it is.
Yeah.
But 21-year-old Sean, basketball player at UCLA,
6'6". Woo!
I'm at an all-time high. And okay. So the next day, I kind of came in the training room, and the football team was all getting taped. It was August, so I was there just doing workouts over the summer. And her soccer season had just started, but she had she was, and the only table that was open for my injury was right next to her. So I plow on down. I'm like, hey, what's up? And I came in probably thinking Garth Brooks, which probably made her think that I'm a crazy person. And I was like, hey, what's up? She's like, nothing much. I'm like, what's your name? And she goes, oh, it's Sarah. I'm like, hey, you want to go out? She's like, no. And I was like, what? Wait, what did this freshman say to me? She hasn't even started school, and she said no? No? Why no?
Good for her.
And I was like, this is garbage. And lo and behold, a couple nights later, my roommate, Todd Ramazar, we sneak in to the dining hall up top that was open during summer school to have dinner because we were too lazy to cook. We figured we could sneak our way in because nothing says sneaky more than two guys that are 6'5" and 6'6" walking into a dining hall. But somehow, some way, we were able to sneak our way in, get the free dinner, and her and her friend were sitting down at the table. So I was like, hey, let's go over there. So we went over there. We talked. Next thing you know, a little while later, we started going out and dating, and the rest is kind of history after that.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that Sean Farnham, 6'6", champion, 21, feeling himself, denied.
Just absolutely denied.
No.
And yet, at the end of the day, like you can see it as a denial, but Beto, let's be honest. In the end, I won. I mean, he might have said no momentarily, but that was just like, that's like going out in the first round of a boxing match and getting jabbed through the first round and you take a loss and it's 10-9. You didn't lose the fight.
Okay.
You just got jabbed through the first round.
All right, and if you want, I'll edit that part out for the podcast so your wife doesn't hear that part later because we are live on YouTube right now.
She can hear that part. I don't care.
Exactly. All right, let's get into some of the stuff that you've accomplished on your career. Pretty cool. I'm going to throw things at you because I know everything about you, Sean Farnham. High school football game. I want to take you back to Carson, California, StubHub Center at that time. I believe it's Long Beach Poly and Snoop Dogg and Sean Farnham on the desk. How'd that happen?
That was wild. I wish I had footage of that. I really wish I had footage of that. Snoop was very loose that night.
Yeah.
He was very good at bringing content to the table. But that was unbelievable because, he's done so many great things for so many kids with his football league. And, we talked so much about Snoop and I think it's well documented now, his accomplishments of giving back to the community. And this was his first class of having kids go through that were seniors in high school.
Yeah.
And so that's why he was at that game. And so he ended up joining us on set, talking about his kids and how proud he was and how the youth league was doing. And how what he was trying to foster was actually coming to fruition because if I'm not mistaken, I think the Anthony Thomas I think it was Crenshaw was playing too, and the D train was just about ready to board and take off. Yeah, and he was unbelievable, and he was one of those kids that ended up getting a college scholarship and an opportunity to better his life.
Yeah, it was 2009 California State Championships. And Crenshaw was playing your alma mater, Concord de La Salle. Anthony Thomas now in the NFL, injured. But I remember, Twitter had just started, and
I was ahead of all this stuff. I've been late to the game on Twitter, on Instagram, everything.
Yeah, you've been working and grinding. See, that's why you don't need that. But it was Twitter had just started, and I remember walking by, and I took a picture of you with a digital camera that I had because cell phones weren't good. I have no idea where that picture is at.
If you ever find that, you got to send that to me.
I walked by and I'm thinking, Farnham's the host of it. Cool, he's on the set. That's my guy right there. Proud of him. He used to buy me pizza answering the radio. And then I see like a little mob of people come in and security, and I'm like, and I wasn't supposed to be on the field that day. I didn't have a field pass. I was supposed to be at the press box, but me, I stuck down on the field anyways. So I'm thinking security's kind of coming our way. No, and it's Snoop who just sits down and gives you like the big guy, like he's like, and he starts telling you how he watches the games on Friday night because you were the studio host for that on location that year, and I think Gita was the play-by-play guy, and it's like, wait, Snoop knows Farnham from high school sports.
It's crazy, right? I mean, and that's the sports world. I mean, it's a small fraternity in the sports world, and when you people that love sports, they embrace it and they want to be around it, and you see a lot of celebrities and a lot of people over the years that's been fortunate enough to either work with or interview that are like, it blows me away when they're like, man, I watch you all the time. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, how do you watch me all the time? Like, I'm listening to your music. I'm watching your movies. I'm watching your HBO television shows. Like, what do you mean you watch me? And I think that's the fun part of this business. So sometimes we forget just how big the reach is, especially when you're at a place like ESPN, where everything you do gets kind of magnified a little bit more.
Who are some of the people that told you where you're like, what? Besides Snoop?
Jerry Ferrara.
Turtle
from Entourage.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one. I went to a concert up in Spokane, Washington recently. The country music guy, Jordan Davis, and sees me in the hallway because we were backstage. He sees me in the hallway. And he's like, "Man, Sean Farnham from ESPN, what are you doing here?" Like, wait, hold on. Like, hey, how did someone tell you I was coming? Like, because he's just kind of getting started out. Like, he's an up and coming country music act. So I mean, it's been people like that. There's been times too where I've covered guys and then they've gone on and had a ton of success in the NBA. And like I was out at Mamba last summer, and a couple of guys that were working out there came walking by, and I was doing a charity event for Coaches versus Cancer at Mamba last summer. And so I was doing a tour of the site with the facility people, and a couple of guys in the league were walking by, and they're like, "Hey, what's up, my man? How you doing? Man, I missed when you were calling my games." And I'm like, that was like 8-9 years ago. How do you remember me calling your games? But it kind of puts into perspective, and this is kind of the philosophy I've always had when it comes to this profession, Beto, and I know we've talked about this before, is Chris Myers, who I was fortunate to work with for a long time, has been, in the business forever for Fox. And he always said, he had saying, like, every night's the Super Bowl. And the saying for that was very simple. Think about when you're doing your boxing matches. The people that are watching those fights on that night, there is nothing more important on television than what they're watching.
Okay.
So even when I was doing high school football, the people that were watching, like, this could be the moment that a kid has a breakout game, and it's the game that he shows his grandchildren. This could be the moment where his grandparents see their son or their grandson on television for the first and only time of their lives. So it matters. And I've adopted that philosophy then, and I carry it on now. And, a lot of times when games are at the end and it's quote-unquote garbage minutes, and we're talking about games, sometimes those garbage minutes are the moment that kid will have for the rest of his life. And maybe I know it because I played in garbage minutes for especially my first 2 seasons at UCLA. And I know that feeling of what it's like to get in a game in a tournament setting and score your first bucket. That matters. And you've got to celebrate that moment as a broadcaster, because that is that player's moment, and you've got to shed light on that moment. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And when you approach it as this is the most important thing that's on television that night, every single time you step to the mic, it's hard to not be ready to go and not do it justice. And that's the thing, whether it's boxing, whether it's basketball, baseball, soccer, it doesn't matter. When people tune in, they are investing their time in that product, that game, that television show, that sitcom. At that moment, that's the only thing those people want to watch. They're invested. You need to be equally invested.
That's a great attitude, philosophy. I once again, why we get along, because I think the same exact thing. Because if I'm doing a fight at 4 p.m. and there's 2 people in the crowd, you have to give it, because you never know what might happen. Or at the same time, if you're a viewer and you're just like, you're boring about it, like, why should you have to sell it? So why would the viewer want to watch it? I think that's not that I complain about announcers, but there's certain people you can just tell that mail it in, and it's like, it's not fair.
No, and it's not, because, and let's go to use boxing as a prime example. You might have a guy that's on the undercard that has 3 people, and they're all 3 of them are like his girlfriend, his mom, and his dad, right? And then this sprinkling of other people that are just getting in way early for the fight. That might be the fight, though, that a bigger promoter sees him, and 10 years down the road, they're showing footage of that fight to tell the backstory of that guy that's now a main eventer.
I'm going to tell you the story right now. 2016, I think Canelo's fighting Liam Smith at Cowboy Stadium. The first fight of the night is a kid named Joshua Franco, who is going to be fighting for a world title maybe next year. Good kid. Cowboy Stadium, huge venue, nobody in the building. We're streaming it, I don't even know where. This is before they even did Facebook streams. And the kid goes back and forth. They weigh 112 pounds. Franco ends up knocking the dude down. And I'm in the broadcast. I get into it. Boom, you're supposed to. Gets up, and he knocks the guy out. Like, one of the best knockouts I've ever seen. Sensational knockout, right? That was recently used a couple weeks ago as one of the highlight clips of one of the best knockouts of the last couple years. And it's like, you have all these other things going on, and then all of a sudden I hear my voice, and people start tagging me like, is that you? Is that you? Is that your voice? Sure enough, because of the way that I approached it, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but if I would have just been like, oh, he knocked him out, big wow. Like, doesn't happen. But because I had that same approach of it doesn't matter where I'm at, it's my Super Bowl. That's the main event. That's now a highlight reel. And I got to find the clips. So I can use it on my reels. So I can find an agent because like it was good. But that goes back to you. Always be prepared, which leads me to something that you did one time, Sean Farnham. Always being prepared. UCLA game. You're the sideline reporter. I don't even know what year it was. I'm watching at home because you're my boy Farnham. And I'm like, hell yeah. Farnham's going to get on there maybe a couple times. I'm listening. Bill McDonald, who's now the Lakers play-by-play voice, was working for Fox Sports at the time. His voice is a little raspy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think Billy Mack can do this. As a broadcaster, you know it. And he gets worse and worse. I go get something to eat. I come back. In the booth now, here is Sean Farnham. And you're doing the game. Like, how the hell did you go from the sidelines up to the booth? Because there's no way that you should be prepared for something like that, but you were.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. One is in those moments, and that's probably the wildest moment of my entire career, still to this day, because that was something that was so outside of the realm of even the thought process when I was there. But again, preparation on the sideline. Know the players. I had to cover both teams, so I had to have a base knowledge of especially the significant players, right? Like Jake Locker was the quarterback for Washington at the time. Raheem Moore was the guy that got the interception on the far sideline to steal the victory for UCLA on the final possession of the game. But you knew kind of like who the stars were on the game. So at halftime, I get a call on my cell phone, and they're like, "Hey, you need to go to the booth because Billy Mack, we got to pull him." And Billy didn't want to give up the game because he's a consummate pro, and he's like, "Look, you do your job and you do it great." But yet he knew that his voice was gone, and so he said, "Okay, you got to take over, Sean. Here's my game board." And during the commercial break, he showed me what his game boards looked like, so that I knew the names. There were certain guys I didn't know how to pronounce their last name because they weren't significant enough. It was like the third string running back that gets in on third down and carries the ball, and I'm like, how do you say this guy's name? And so like I had to take a pen real quick and phonetically spell it out, so that I would be able to do that. And then, of course, in football, you have a spotter that will point to the name quickly. And I just came to the conclusion of, hey, know what you know, play to your strengths. Don't try to do too much. And so what I did was I made it simple. I made it easy. And I didn't try to be someone I wasn't at that time. And, what are the most important things you need to know at home? Yards, downs, formation, time on the clock.
But had you ever done a football play-by-play game?
No, but I cannot say I was a play-by-play man at the Rose Bowl, so I can say that. I've called a college football game at the Rose Bowl.
Your first ever play-by-play game was the UCLA at the Rose Bowl on Fox Sports.
Yes. It was fun. I had a great time.
You weren't scared?
No.
Of course not.
No, I mean, I was nervous. I got nervous in the snow. Like, I had butterflies. Like, okay. But once I sat down and you put the headset on, and you know this, you get those butterflies, I'm sure, when you're fight.
Hell yeah.
Like, you're like, okay, this is a bigger than usual moment, or this is a unique moment. It's the calming mechanism that you have inside of you to settle yourself down. And I'm sure if I watched it back, I was probably racing on the first couple of plays at least, trying to do too much or trying to speak quicker than I needed to. And then I kind of slowed down. I got myself into a good rhythm, and we got through the call of the game. That's
pretty cool. All right, now, Sean Farnham, let's switch it up a little bit because you're a big pop culture guy. Let's start off with your love for wrestling, right?
Yeah.
They love you at WWE. You go front row wherever you want. How'd that happen?
They do. Okay, so a couple of years ago, first of all, I've been a fan forever. So I was interviewed by Mean Gene Okerlund back in 1986. And Mean Gene Okerlund was at the taping at the time at Cow Palace in San Francisco. And it was WWE Superstars. And they came up and said, hey, you want to be fan of the week? And I was like, yeah, sure. They gave me all this swag. And Mean Gene came up and interviewed me.
No way.
And I was like, awesome. So that kind of hooked me. And then I got out of it after like the Austin and Rock era. And I was, out of college and trying to get my professional life going. I got out of professional wrestling. And then my son started getting into it. And once my kids got into it, I started getting a little bit more invested again. So fast forward to about 3 years ago now, a week before WrestleMania, I'm in studio working the NCAA tournament at ESPN. I come into the green room, and Stephanie McMahon is standing there. And I turn around, and I'm like, wow. And I said, how you doing? And she goes, hi, I'm Stephanie McMahon. And I'm like, yeah, I know who you are. I'm Sean Farnham. I cover college basketball here at ESPN. I'm like, you guys do a great job. You do so much good work with Connors Pure and all the stuff that they've really started getting involved with that they weren't doing, at least in the 2000s and certainly not in the 80s. But she goes, oh, really? You should come to an event. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. You know, I like to go anyway. She's like, oh, well, take my assistant's card, and anytime you want to go, let me know.
Jeez, okay. Like, let's go.
Like, come on. She's just saying that it's not going to be that way. No, she's been really real. So we've been fortunate enough to go to a couple of SmackDowns, a couple of Raws, and subsequently I met a couple of wrestlers. I went to WrestleMania last year in New York with my guy Joe Test. That was fun because I was at the Final Four on Saturday in Minnesota. Flew out Sunday morning to New York, went to WrestleMania, and then worked Monday and Tuesday in New York covering the NCAA tournament, the finals of the NCAA tournament, and UCLA coaching search.
Now, when you meet these wrestlers, because you're 6'6", and you're still in good shape, like, would these guys ever tell you something like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
No, because, I mean, they when I've met them in the past, they're like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I played basketball at UCLA, you know, now I'm been working at ESPN cover college basketball. Like, that's where I recognize you. Like, and again, it's some of those kind of moments you have. And they're just really good dudes. I mean, they work their tail off, and they put themselves in incredible situations. One of the coolest moments last year was after WrestleMania, having Becky Lynch and Kofi Kingston the morning after that Monday come in to get up. So I covered and prepared for the national championship game that was that night, which was Virginia winning the national championship over Texas Tech. And at the same time, we had Kofi Kingston and Becky Lynch in, and to be honest, a lot of the other people on the set don't know anything about wrestling, so they had me basically do the interview.
That's cool.
With the two of them, especially since I was there that night. And so it was just super cool and a lot of fun, and my kids still love watching it. So it's a good thing for me to connect and talk to my kids about, even when I'm on the road. And that's important. When you're on the road as much as I'm on the road, you got to find ways to connect at home. And you know, I can land in New York on a Monday, watch the NBA games, and flip back and forth and watch wrestling and call up my house and talk to my kids about, did you see that match? Could you believe what Braun Strowman just did? Like, oh, my goodness, like, that guy's huge. And it's a way for me to kind of strike up that conversation that I want to have with my kids.
It's a trick because Javier Razo, I work with that Golden Boy who's watching right now. He is a big wrestling fan. He and his son, Junior, Joe, they all about wrestling. They know all that stuff's going on. And I'm kind of like, I don't know what's going on. I don't really know much. But when I was working for Combate Americas, I was working with Alberto Del Rio. You know, and at that time he was dating Paige.
Yes.
Okay. I post a picture of Paige and Alberto, and all of a sudden I had more comments about that than anything I've ever posted. Kobe game, Laker game, whatever, because the wrestling people were just like coming in. How are you so close to them? Don't you know their story? I'm like, and I didn't know that she was a wrestler. I thought.
Oh yeah, no, she has that movie. The Rock made a movie about it.
That was before that. I didn't know she was a wrestler. I thought that was Alberto Del Rio's girlfriend. That's all I know. Mind you, we're in Tijuana in some small little venue, and I'm like, all right, cool. And then afterwards,
I remember seeing that picture when you posted it. I was like, damn, my man has come up in the world.
Exactly, that's my point. And then getting to know some of the wrestlers over the years, because Freddie Prinze used to write for them. He's told me some stories about them, and like Jonathan Coachman, Todd Grisham have told me stories about this stuff. They're like the coolest people. Like, wrestling guys are the coolest people to deal with. Mind you, most of them are on painkillers because of the stuff that they put their body through all the time, and hearing what they tell you, what they have to go through to get that. But at the end of the day, they're entertainers. And like, that's why I used to be that guy that was like, whatever about wrestling. Then you meet them and you see the preparation, the time they go in it, and I respect them for what they do, man. It's kind of like the same admiration you have for them.
There's no doubt. I mean, look, you watch WrestleMania this past year, and they're doing it just a couple weeks ago, and they're doing it in front of an empty warehouse, basically. It was unbelievable. John Morrison, Kofi Kingston, and Jey Uso. And then you had Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens just absolutely tore the place down. There were some moments there where you can kind of see those that really separate themselves to being on that elite level. And I was happy for Drew McIntyre. I was really happy for Braun Strowman that he finally got the strap. He deserved the strap. His character has kind of gone through an evolution in the last year where it kind of started taking some steps back. But this was a big step forward for him, and I hope they leave it on him for a while.
Farnham, if they put you in and say, hey, we're going to write you into a script, would you go and get body slammed?
Yeah, 100%. If I could get into a battle royal at any point in time in my life and just get thrown over the top rope by somebody, I would take that bump, no problem.
All right,
I would love it.
Playing at UCLA, cool. Getting slammed on WWE, way better.
Yes, 100%. Because to me, like the basketball portion, Beto, that's like something you've done your whole entire life.
Okay.
Like it'd be like going on stage and being able to sing a song with a major artist in front of like a sold out crowd, and you get to do it duet with them. Like that would be like that's such a once in a lifetime. Like not everybody gets to experience type of thing. So I mean that will be eventually a goal of mine, is to get body slammed out of a ring and thrown over the top rope at a WWE event.
I'm glad you got goals for the rest of your career. And if you're guys watching on YouTube, you guys have any questions for Sean, we're going to get a couple from you. I can post it up there, interact with you. But as we start wrapping up, Farnham, when you look at your career, right, when you came out of UCLA, you coached at Pepperdine for a little bit, why did you choose this?
Because I love sports. I love connecting with people. I love the stories. And every game has stories. Every turn has stories. And the people you get to connect with and the people you get to meet, they tell their own story too. And it's colleagues. It's not just the athletes. It's the colleagues. It's the stories you get to hear. Like I remember one night, Dick Enberg was calling the NCAA tournament, and it was at a time where Jay Billis was calling like two of the games with him, and I think they had Len Elmore calling two of the other games or whatnot. Or no, Jay Billis was calling all the games. Excuse me. Dick Enberg was doing two of the games. It was later in his career, and Carter Blackburn was filling in on the other two games of the NCAA tournament. And I went down and we met at a hotel down by the pond or the Honda Center, and Dick Enberg started telling us stories. And I was just like, man, this is an encyclopedia. When I worked with Brent Musburger for the first time as my play-by-play partner, and he's telling me stories about Muhammad Ali, and I'm going, man, are you kidding me? Like, this is incredible. So, I mean, the stories that we hear and we learn in this profession make it unique. And that's the one thing I think you can always learn from, and you can always sit down. And I always appreciate the stories that I get told by the people that I'm colleagues with, and then the people that I get to cover.
Okay, you did games with Brent Musburger, who's now the voice of the Raiders on radio, but legendary Brent Musburger. What was that like?
My kids are like, dude, that's the guy from Cars. And I'm like, yes, it is. He's one of the voices of the movie Cars. But, yeah, no, I mean, like, Brent was working with Brent Musburger. I mean, that was nerve-wracking because you're like, okay, like, just you cannot step. As an analyst, you don't ever want to step on the play-by-play guy's call. And I'm like, this is Brent Musburger. Like, don't be the guy that steps all over Brent Musburger in big moments of the game. And so what I do a lot of times when I work with different play-by-play guys, I did this with Brad Nessler when I was working with Nessler as well, and Joe Tess, is you start going back and watch their old games that they've called, and you can learn their cadence. And so what I try to do is I learn the way there's beats, there's rhythms to how they call a game. And once you figure out what their rhythm is, it allows you to be a good dance partner. And that's what I always try to do.
So you got Musburger. Any advice he give you?
No. He's just like, yeah, laddie, just go ahead and do your thing, laddie. Let's call a game. I'm like, all right, cool.
Joe Tessitore is fantastic. He does a lot of boxing for ESPN. I've never met him, but I'm a big fan of him. What's it like working with him?
He's a larger-than-life guy. I mean, he's powerful and he's strong.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anybody in the business that's better in those big game moments or those big fight moments. Listening to him call Wilder Fury he loves Lomachenko as well, and he's done a lot of Lomachenko fights. I forget the new guy that just like literally knocks people out and like they fall.
It's Teofimo Lopez that he's done his fights.
Yes, Lopez, that's right. And he's nailed every single one of those calls. And then you go back and you start watching Colin Sexton at the SEC tournament over the top of Robert Williams to win the game and essentially punch Alabama's ticket into the NCAA tournament with that victory. He was all over that call. Yeah. It was fantastic. And what you have to understand is when you're working with Tess, you know the moment because he'll always grab your arm.
To stay quiet.
he starts to get excited, and he like grabs your arm. And when he gets excited, you don't want to go there with him because you just got to let him go. Cover up your mouth, bite your tongue, do whatever it is, because it's going to be better than anything you're going to add to the call. And that's what I learned over the years of working with Joe Tess.
Yeah, Tesla does Monday Night Football, just super talented. There was a good feature on him, it was a couple months ago, about how he's old school Italian. He has his own pizza oven. Only wears Ferragamo shoes.
This year, I went over to his house because he lives up close to Connecticut. He was home. I was working. And he's like, you can't spend Thanksgiving by yourself. Come to my house. What say you, Sean? Get down here right now. You're going to have a pizza. I'm going to make you a pie. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I go on down, and I get to his house. His whole family's there, big Italian family. And he goes, hey, let's go. What do you want on your pizza? What do you want? And he goes to the backyard, puts it in the oven, makes me a great pizza. I had pizza for Thanksgiving, but it was awesome and a great experience.
Yeah, and the article said that he was real Italian. He only wears Ferragamo and Gucci.
It does. It's true. It's true, but let's be honest. I'm not on that pay grade yet.
No, that's a different pay grade. We're still at Nordstrom's right now. Now
if I can get there, that's good. Food Supply is not a bad place to go either.
No,
make sure you check them out.
Hey, you do impersonations of who? I know you got a couple in you.
Joe Tess is my most popular one. Like when I go all Joe Tess on everything, it's like people like wild out. Like I do it on TV all the time. People really like that one. Dick Vitale you can go to sometimes, like you can always I always said I'd love to call a game as Joe Tess on the play-by-play, and then me as the analyst with occasionally busting in a little Dick Vitale and just call it all by myself like a little Frank Caliendo-esque.
Well, then do it.
But I haven't perfected those skills yet.
Okay.
If you're Joe Tess, and I got to put it down because the key with Joe Tess and calling Joe Tess, you got to use the hand. Beto, let me tell you this: the fight coming up this weekend between Vitaly Lomachenko. Oh, you're talking pound for pound. One of the pure electrifying boxers that we have in top-ranked boxing. Bob Arum has done a tremendous job cultivating this young man's career. He's like a great balsamic vinegar. You know the kind I'm talking about, Beto Duran, the one from Italy. Not the stuff you get off the shelf at Whole Foods. I'm talking about the thing that's as thick as surf. Don't drip it on the Ferragamos, my man. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that's the promo for this podcast right there. Sean Farnham, or was it Joe Tessitore for it? It was good, man. Monday Night Football, ESPN Boxing, Joe Tessitore. So you continue to keep on going and evolve. Farnham, we're going to do this again. Next week, we're going to go Instagram Live to get you some more followers.
Let me tell you this, because we talked a lot about success. Okay, but failure is equally important, Beto.
Go for it. We got plenty of time.
Okay, for people in this business, you have to understand failure. You have to be told no. And there have been multiple times over the course of the career that I would look to and I'd say, hey, you know what? I failed in that moment. I wasn't good enough in that moment. Things didn't work out, whether it was on me or people around me or the chemistry amongst people. And I would go back to the first recession, and they cut a lot of shows at Fox Sports West. And all of a sudden I'm trying to pitch ideas and say, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And it ended up forcing me to basically have to cold call ESPN, which is how I got my job at ESPN. I called the college basketball CP and said, hey, I'm Sean Farnham. I want to work at ESPN. And it opened up a door of opportunity. Very, very recently, even in the recent years, I had a show that was expected to start with Marcellus Wiley on ESPN 710. And that show lasted less than a month, my man. And it was bad. Like, I admit, it wasn't good. And I got a great deal of respect from Marcellus, and Marcellus and I have talked multiple times since then. It wasn't a thing that we didn't like each other, but the timing was all off on it, and it just never clicked. And my schedule, and I was flying back on red eyes and landing at the airport and driving straight in to do a radio show, and it just wasn't right. And when you have those moments of failure, it's easy to sit there and say, man, woe is me. Like, man, this stinks. Like, and it did stink. Getting called into the office at ESPN 710, 20 shows for us. We'll pull in the plug on this thing.
Hold on real quick. Farnham,
really hard
Farnham, you cut
for
off.
me to actually hear.
You cut off real quick. So you said.
You there?
Yeah, you're there. You said getting
when I got called in the offices.
Yep.
Called in the offices at ESPN 710 and being told, like, hey, we're 20 shows in, but you're done. And I'm like, wait, the first books haven't even come out yet. Like, we don't even know if this is working or not working yet. Like, it takes time to build chemistry, and they're like, nah, we thought we wanted this, we don't want it, and so it's over. And coming home and looking my wife in the eyes and telling her, like, hey, we just lost a good amount of money, afternoon drive in LA. And, people taking shots on Twitter and coming at me, and they still do. And hearing that and being like, yeah, you know what? Like, dude, it wasn't good. I get it. And I never even publicly have talked about it. This is the first time I've ever publicly talked about it. And I felt like I wasn't given the shot that I was told I was going to get, but that didn't matter. And I rolled up my sleeves and I looked at my wife and said, something good is going to come out of this. And from this, it actually opened up a door of opportunity for me to do more work at ESPN, got me involved with Get Up. I was covering now the NBA instead of just covering college basketball. And all those things opened up a door of opportunity for me that I've run through now in the last 2 years since that transpired. And so that's why I think it's really important when you think about this business. It's not all easy. It's not all great. We don't make a ton of money all the time. You don't make a lot of money early in your career. You've got to work and grind. I've been 20 years at this thing now, 20 years overall that I've been grinding on this. And I still have failures, and I still have times where I feel like, man, I wish I could have got that, or I wish this would have worked, or I wish this would have happened. And when it doesn't, you have two options. One is feel sorry, and the second you start feeling sorry is the second you'll be out of this business. The second you realize, you know what, like, that didn't work, it stunk, it hurts, shake it off and let's go. What's next? And the what's next mentality has always been my saving grace for me to fall back on. And so as much as we've talked about successes that I've had, and I've had a lot, and I've been fortunate, it's those failures that you learn from and often galvanize who you become. And that's the part I think that especially people in this business need to understand.
Somebody comes up to you right now and says, Sean Farnham, I want to be on TV. I want to be a sports reporter. Best advice you have for them?
I tell this when I talk to college kids all the time. Make your own content, right? Look at what you're doing right now. We're making content. This is content. I don't know how many people are going to end up watching this. I think millions probably because your following is huge.
Yep. But, easy.
You make your own content. College students that are on campuses right now, and I talk to even college athletes, say, hey, I want to do what you do. I said, well, you got to start right now. Well, what do you mean? Tell your video department at your school, I want to grab the microphone. I'm going to interview my teammates after game. Just do that. You'll have at least somewhat of a tape by the time it's said and done. Get out and challenge yourself to find ways to make content. And it doesn't have to be the NBA. It doesn't have to be the NFL. It doesn't have to be the MLS. It doesn't have to be college basketball, Major League Baseball. Do high school stories, man. Do high school stories. Get out there and be like, hey, I'm an aspiring broadcaster, and I want to make this my profession. I'm going to use my cell phone, and I'm going to set it up right here, and I'm going to press record, and then we'll do this interview real quick. And I want to get to people to hear your story and start putting it out there on YouTube. Put it out on your Twitter. Put it out on your Instagram, and let people know who you are and what you're trying to do. And also find people that will criticize you.
Yep.
Don't surround yourself with people that are going to tell you you're great all the time, because not every time you step to the mic, you are great. It's the most overused word by people that love you. You're great. That was great. No, it wasn't. I know it wasn't great. It was actually average. Like, be honest with me. And I've been fortunate enough to have people in my career that have done that. And anybody that has ever asked me to mentor them in this business, I've always said one thing. I said, make it very simple on you. If you want my advice, if you want my feedback, you have to be willing to accept my criticism. If you want me to just simply tell you that you're great and you're good to go, then I'll just tell you that now. Don't ever send me any of your videos. I will never respond to them. But if you want me to give you my honest feedback of what I think about your work, I will share it with you and I will tell you. But you have to be able to accept it and then take that feedback and grow from it. And I was fortunate enough to have those type of people in my career, and I've tried to embrace that role as I've gone now 20 years deep. That's
great advice right there, because I always tell people, don't send it to anybody you know. Send it to people who don't know, the strangers. And if they tell you, hey, that was good, find somebody else. Because you yourself know that it wasn't good or anything like that, because you want constructive criticism back and forth. All right, Sean, before we wrap it up, high school kids that want to be a college athlete, best advice for them?
Do what others aren't. Like, if you simply do what your coach is asking you, you're not getting any better. You're staying the same level that you were beforehand. And really right now for high school athletes in quarantine, here's what's gonna come out of it. When it's all said and done, and we get out of this quarantine and youth sports start back up, it's going to be evident really quick who stayed in shape, who worked, and who didn't. And you've got to be able to put yourself in a situation where you are excelling and doing more. And I always tell my kids, okay, so here's what your coach sent you. What are you going to do that's extra? And if you're willing to put in that time to do that, that's where your growth will come, because you're starting to pull away. And every day I call my kids workouts their eraser workouts, because what you're erasing is self-doubt. What you're erasing is any doubt you have that you can't succeed by putting in the extra time. And so every time we go out in the front yard, we're like, take the eraser, let's go. Today we're taking out the eraser again. What are we going to do that's more than what everybody else on your team is doing? And if we're doing that, you're starting to pull ahead. And every day you're taking that investment, you're erasing more and more of the doubt that others may have, or you may even have about yourself. So when the next time you get the opportunity to take the field, take the court, and the ball is in your hands, you're able to just crush it.
Ooh, that's so good. That's so good right there, because it's going back to the simple ones. All right, last one, Farn. What would you tell high school Sean Farnham? Best advice for him.
You're a dork. You need to hit the weight room. And don't worry, just keep being yourself, because at the end of the day, being happy, trying to enjoy life, and approaching it with a smile on your face is going to work out okay for you.
Sean Farnham. There you go. We did an hour right now, Farn, and we'll do it again because we got plenty of time. Next week we'll do an Instagram Live where we really mess around, get all the people going. But this was good. First time we catch up. I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while. Unfortunately, it took quarantine to get us going. But I taught myself how to do this content with this program and graphics and everything. We're live on YouTube. I mean, technology. You got to evolve, right?
You're big time, buddy. You're big time.
Yeah, I'm just back here living the dream at UCLA. One day.
Okay, wait, hold on. Your Instagram account, how many followers do you have?
Like 20.
27.1 thousand. Farney, how much does Sean Farnham have? 1,600.
Because you're busy working, I'm busy posting.
Yeah, but your posts are good, man. People love it.
I appreciate it. So
I'm trying to work on it. I've been working on Chef Life, trying to get people to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, we'll get there. Sean Farnham, you want to follow him on Twitter, social media, everything else. We'll do it again soon. Sean, really do appreciate it. Great catching up with you. Say hello to the family, and we'll do this again, man. This was good. And then now I figured out we can do this with around the horn style. Like, you're still one of my guinea pigs. We can have up to 4 people on this broadcast. So if you want to go and bring some of your friends with you.
We could be like, let's get Lindsay on. Let's do like an old high school reunion. Geeter, Lindsay, and Farney.
And Snoop.
If you can get Snoop, that'd be even better.
We know how to entice Snoop. Come on now. It's not that hard. Figure it. Farnham, appreciate it. Your social media is just Sean Farnham. That's his guy. Go and check him out all over the place. Google it. He's the only one and only. El hombre, mi amigo, who used to buy me pizza, answering the phones, and nobody called. Just so everybody knows, nobody was calling those shows anyways. So Farnham was doing
That's
it.
That's not true. Jeff in Long Beach was always calling.
Jeff and Tarzana. Jeff and
Tarzana always called.
Sean, appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.